I've kind of been saving that one for a rainy day, and it's gonna rain any day now. Like, did I film a vlog where I talked about this? Which is really helpful, right? To tell you that, hey, by the way, there was already something on Instagram about this. My battery didn't like how much I was talking because it decided to turn off, and we might look a little different now. Hi everybody, it's Audrey, and welcome back to Chapter and Converse, and welcome to another round of some recent reads. Now, full disclosure, I swear I have already filmed a video about some of these books. I can't find it. So either I did it and I accidentally deleted the footage before I did anything with it, which feels both on brand but also a little bit off for me. This has also been, hands down, probably one of the most chaotic stretches of time I have had in a really long time. And I'm not going to pretend that I've been doing my A game when it comes to stuff. So I don't even know. I'm having an extreme case of deja vu, but we're going to talk about some books that I have read recently since last we met and talked about books I have read recently. So here we go. I'm going to apologize in advance, you guys. It's just one of those, it's a season. I'm in a season. Eventually the season will end. But okay, let's get into some books. My reading has been about as scatterboxed as I have been, partially due to my mood reading just firing in all different directions. I have had a difficulty with attention span / concentrated amounts of time to read. And there was a slight injury, everything's fine, that did sideline me from being able to walk for a bit. So I have not been on my walking about town game, which has obviously cut into my reading time. So the universe just conspires sometimes. But anyway, here we go. Let's dive into some books because I do want to give them the airtime and the love that they deserve. The first one is A Special Place for Women by Laura Hankin. I read The Daydreams last year, which was her release, and I quickly picked up her two previous books and then quickly put them on the shelf, but I have now picked this one back up again. So I was listening to an old episode of the Bad on Paper podcast, and they had a book club about this, and I skipped over that episode because I hadn't read the book yet. Read the book, went back and listened to the book club episode, and I really enjoyed it. So her new book, One Star Romance, is either coming out in June or has already come out, depending on the time you guys see this. I will include it down below. And I'm just a huge fan of her writing. She's funny. She writes with some level of weightiness. There's pop culture influences to it. I enjoy her writing style, and I just really enjoy her books. Each one is a little bit different. They are all standalones, and this is the one that kind of caught my eye with which one to read next. So I would say it's a slower burn, like contemporary, but there's an air of mystery to it because there's a secret that needs to be unpacked throughout the course of the book. But in this one, we are following a woman named Jillian, and she is a journalist. She winds up losing her job, and she had been taking care of her mom, who has recently passed away. She had cancer, and Jillian is kind of a little bit adrift right now because she doesn't have a job. Her personal life is obviously a bit thrown sideways. Her mom was her only family, and she needs to make money. She needs to sort of get back out there, and she's having a little bit of a hard time. But then fate steps in, and Jillian is at a restaurant opening. One of her oldest and best friends, Raph, is the chef there, and it attracts a lot of very VIP people around New York City. And she meets this woman named Margot, who is believed to be linked to this kind of female secret society exclusive club called Nevertheless. And Jillian winds up pitching a story to her former editor, who's at a new paper, that she can get the inside track on Nevertheless. So it is a female club like no other, is kind of how it's pitched. And it says only the most important women receive an invitation. And there are whispers about the dues, about what benefits they have, what connections they have, and everyone has an NDA. No one's ever been able to get any information about it, but Jillian is convinced that she will be able to infiltrate the club because of this connection she has made at the restaurant opening and kind of tear back the curtain and expose everything that Nevertheless is about. So we wind up getting her getting involved with this community of women. There's a special place for women. We have her dealing with absolutely gut-wrenching grief. So there's a lot of weightiness and heaviness to this. This is not all light and fluffy. We have some complicated relationships that she has with colleagues, with people she meets at Nevertheless, with her and Raph. And she is, like I said, down on her luck, running out of money. She has to sell her mother's house. She has to find a place to live. Like things like the walls are definitely closing in on Jillian, and she is definitely getting desperate. And the more she digs, the more she starts to uncover. And there's some strange stuff going on at Nevertheless. I did not know where this book was going. Like I said, it's a contemporary, but there is an air of mystery because you are trying to figure out what the deal is with this club and with these women that are involved in it. And some things are definitely intentionally over the top. There is a lot of mystery and questions that arise. I had fun with it. I really enjoyed this idea of women supporting women and kind of where she pokes at it and what's real and what's a facade and what's really going on with these people. And like I said, a lot of questions. There's been a lot of rumors about this group. There's been a lot of gossip around this group. And Jillian is kind of at this point where, you know, how far will she go for the story is basically where we're at with it. So again, I hesitate to say too much about it, even though it's not like a typical thriller in any kind of a way. There is a lot of TBD in it that I think is more fun if it just reveals itself to you naturally. So it takes place chiefly in New York City. They do have a suburban retreat that they do. And I just really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the characters. I really liked Raph as a best friend, strong male character in her life. I liked the dynamic between the two of them. I thought it was well written, had some fun with it. Again, definitely moments of levity to this, moments of weightiness to it. And if you are not already reading Laura Hankin, I highly recommend her. So again, The Daydreams was her book from last year. One Star Romance is out now. And then the first book is Happy and You Know It, which, yes, Happy and You Know It, which I haven't read yet, but it's 1,000% up on my shelf. So stay tuned. Audrey's got a new obsession. There you go. Okay. So to stick on the bad on paper vibe of it all, I also read Such a Bad Influence by Olivia Mentor, who is one of the co-hosts of Bad on Paper. I talked about this book earlier in the year when it was announced. This is her debut novel. It is, I feel like it's pitched as thriller. This came up in my light thriller recommendation video. I am using thriller as an umbrella, kind of the way the industry does. But so like mystery, thriller, crime fiction, like it's all just sort of there. And I would pitch this book as a slow burn mystery. I feel like it's so tricky trying to classify thrillers, but this definitely had a slower burn vibe to it. And there's a lot of character study to this book. So the core of this book is we have a girl named Evelyn. She is 18 years old. She is a mega influencer, like huge star on Instagram. Her career started when she was 5 years old. So she was a child of a mom / family influencer. Family, great, right? I'm doing a great job today. Who put YouTube videos out there, who was very popular. And Evelyn wound up being a part of a viral video about her family when she was 5 years old. So the video sort of unexpectedly went viral and threw them into a whole new stratosphere. So Evelyn's older sister, Hazel, who was 15 at the time, was very much like, I don't want any part of this internet world. I do not want to be on YouTube. She was super reluctant to have anything to do with it. And kind of as soon as she could step away, she did. But now we are meeting Evelyn at 18, who is doing an Instagram live in a parking lot. And there's sort of some shadowy figure that appears, and then Evelyn disappears. Screen goes black. Nobody hears from her. Someone who's been posting all the time, who posts all day, just darkness. So Hazel winds up making a reluctant return home, one of Audrey's favorite things, to try and find out what happened to her sister, to start to look into what she was up to look into the boyfriend and the best friend and the community, and then also confront her issues with her mother, which was one of the driving forces that her mother basically drove Hazel away. So we have a lot of different factors at play here. The core of this is really a lot of commentary on influencer culture in terms of children who are potentially given no choice in being a part of these worlds. Kind of, I feel like in more recent years, there's been a lot more critique about these family influencers that have been out there and whether they're exploiting their children or using them as props or leveraging them and not giving children a choice in the story, or children who are raised this way and don't know any different and don't know any better. So there's definitely a lot of social commentary happening here, but then also Olivia Mentor herself being an influencer, being in this world, an interesting commentary on the parasocial relationship between the audience and an influencer and how we think we know them, how people feel connected to these people that we don't know. As much as people are transparent and exposed and putting their worlds out there, we really know so little about people, and there is no substitution for in real life actually having a relationship with someone. But I know I certainly fall into this trap where you feel like you know people because of what you're seeing, because you're following them, because of what they're sharing with you. So this connection that exists, which is so unique to sort of this moment in time in this past decade plus of time. And there's a lot of commentary on that where people, like, you think you know, but you have no idea about people. So the story is interspersed with kind of multiple timelines. We get Reddit threads, we get Instagram comments, and it's really this dynamic between Hazel and her family, and then the struggle she's having with having removed herself from this world and being forced back into it to try and figure out what happened to her sister. So slow burn. I enjoy the writing a lot. I think Olivia Mentor is a really talented writer. Very interesting choices. Like, it definitely was a book where I didn't know where it was going at all. And I don't mind that at all. Like, I don't need a formulaic book. I don't need a prescriptive book where I know what's coming next. So it was kind of fun being in it and feeling very uncertain. To me, that's like one of the best things about reading somebody's debut or reading an author for the first time, is I have no preconceived notion about what kind of a book it's going to be or where the story is going to go. So I did have a good time with it. And I do think it really generates conversation. I think it would be a really good book club book as we talk about this influencer world, and also definitely raises some questions as I think about how I interact with people, how I utilize Instagram as basically, I mean, YouTube here, but it's less of like a here's my life kind of a YouTube, but how I interact with other creators and my perceptions. I don't know. It just made me think, but also entertain the heck out of me. So definitely recommend it. I also have pre-ordered it, so it's going to be coming, which I'm excited to like add it to the trophy shelf, but really glad I read it. And my full review will be on Instagram before this, which is really helpful, right? To tell you that, hey, by the way, there was already something on Instagram about this, but anyway, good time, good time. Okay, another book that was a really good time is Funny Story by Emily Henry, and I would swear I have talked to you guys about this book. I did film a video that I wound up scrapping, which was kind of I thought they were 5 stars, but this is what Goodreads gave it, and I think maybe that's where in my head I'm confusing that I've already talked about this book. But anyway, all hail the queen of writing. I just live for an Emily Henry book. I was new to the party with her. I read Beach Read, I want to say maybe like a year or two after it came out, and Emily Henry has definitely blown off the doors for me in a rom-com, contemporary, weightiness, humor-filled, steamy-filled, great character series, like a series of great characters in books world. Like, I feel like there's so much to learn from her writing. There's so much to enjoy in her writing, and she has never led me astray, and I loved this. So I did have the great fortune of having the audiobook from Libro, read by Queen Julia Whalen. Now, I think where I'm also getting confused is that, like, did I film a vlog where I talked about this? I don't know. Maybe that was it. I'm sorry if I have already raged on and on about my love of this book, but we're going to do it one more time for the people in the back. So yes, Libro FM, Julia Whalen. I was doubled over laughing back when I was walking. That's how I know how long it's been, about a scene in the beginning of this book that involves Jordan Almonds crying, just crying. I actually paused went over to the side of the road and had to like take a minute because I was laughing so hard I couldn't even walk. I love it. Julia Whalen really, she rocks. Okay, so this is about Daphne, who was engaged to Peter, and she has left her life behind. She moved to Michigan with him. It's his hometown. It's where his family is from. They've been together for a few years. Everything is absolutely fantastic. And as we learn in the first chapter of the book, Peter has dumped her for his, I swear we're just friends, best friend, Petra, and has basically left her with nowhere to live, completely blindsided her, ripped the rug out from underneath her, and she has got to figure out what to do next. So Daphne does what anybody would do. She winds up moving in with Miles, who is Petra's ex. So Miles and Daphne have both been dumped by their partners, and their partners have gotten together, and they all live in the same small town. And Daphne and Miles have never quite gotten along. Miles is kind of the polar opposite of hers. Daphne is a children's librarian. Miles is unclear to Daphne at the beginning of this book, kind of working some odd jobs around town. And she winds up moving into his second room, which is basically the room Petra used as a closet. And the two of them live together because as reasons unfold, Daphne needs to stay in town for a certain amount of time, and they wind up living together. And then after probably a few too many cocktails, because they are both basically mending their broken hearts and drowning their broken hearts in a whole lot of booze, Daphne winds up telling Peter that her and Miles are dating. And the two of them begin a summer of fake dating to make their exes jealous, because why not? I loved this book. I am hard pressed to pick a favorite Emily Henry book because they are each so different and there's something in each of them that I love so much. But I loved the dynamic between Daphne and Miles. There's so much relatability. There's so much fantastic humor to this. Their relationship, I was going to say might be one of my favorites, but again, I just love all of her characters so much. I was listening to an interview with her talking about this book, and she said one of the hardest things about writing this was two characters that were just really good characters. There was nothing wrong with either one of them. When you're fake dating, it's not hate to love. There's no necessarily built-in tension between them, like you had the arch rivals in, I guess, like Beach Read, and kind of in Book Lovers, and then you had the breakup fake dating in Happy Place. I have not yet read People We Meet on Vacation, but I know something went down between Poppy and Alex that needs to be resolved. I've kind of been saving that one for a rainy day, and it's going to rain any day now, so I'm going to get into it. But for Daphne and Miles, they're both basically heartbroken. They have not done anything to each other. There's no reason for them not to like each other. In this particular situation, nobody understands what each of them are going through more than each other. So tensions and conflict is found in other places in this book, but kind of in typical Emily Henry fashion. I feel like there's such a fantastic supporting group of characters. We get some family dynamics. We definitely get some funny run-ins, and I just loved it. Like, fun small town vibes, just quirkiness. Nobody banters like Emily Henry. Nobody finds humor in places like Emily Henry. There's some wonderful steaminess to this book also. And I just loved it. There were like surprising turns, not in a mystery thriller way, but as things were revealed, I don't know. I would challenge you not to fall in love with Daphne and Miles because I think they're just such fantastic characters. And again, there's always an underlying weightiness to this, which I love because people are flawed and affected by things in their past, and we're all a little bit broken, and we're all looking, maybe that's too much of a generalization, but like looking for happiness in places, and life can be a struggle sometimes. And I think she does a really good job of portraying the struggle, whether it is because you are heartbroken, whether because something tragic has happened in your life, whether you are dealing with a past trauma in your life. I think there are scars on all of us, and I think she does a really fantastic job of showing those scars, but also showing people who continue to get up the next day and keep pushing forward and keep trying. And I just loved it. I loved it so much. So I did listen to the audiobook before the physical book came. It was so fantastic. I will always recommend Julia Whalen, hands down. But I also think you just couldn't go wrong reading it or listening to it. I don't know why I paused on that in a really weird way, but I loved it. Love, 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 love. All the stars, all the love, all the time for Emily Henry. Just fantastic. Read it, read it, read it. If you haven't already, read it. The next book I listened to is Before She Finds Me by Heather Chavez, and this was read by Megan Tussing, and this was a fantastic thriller. This one's going to be tricky to talk about because there's definitely potential for spoilers real fast on this one, so I'm going to be a little bit cryptic words on this one. We are following Julia Bennett, and it says she's worked really hard to create a stable life for her daughter, Cora, in Southern California. So Julia is divorced from her ex. He is in a new relationship, and there's a little bit of a challenging dynamic between them. But when the book opens, it is Cora's first day of college, which is the same college that Julia is a professor at. And her ex-husband and his new girlfriend meet them there to kind of celebrate Cora's first day. Everybody, I think, remembers move-in day and what a cluster of a time that can be. But it is particularly busy. It's particularly crazy. And then an attack breaks out on campus, leaving everybody stunned, leaving some people dead, and leaving Julia to wonder, was this actually a random attack? So completely shook, completely freaked out. It is definitely a jarring opening scene for this book. And then we are also following Ren. She is newly pregnant and she has an unusual career. She is a trained assassin operating under a strict moral code. So kind of a Dexter in that her and her partner only go after bad people. And things start to unravel a bit with her as well. So she wasn't on campus that day, but she knows her partner slash husband Nolan was, because she recognizes his MO in this attack. And Nolan and Ren do not take missions without each other. They do not accept jobs without each other. But Nolan has done this behind her back, and Ren is starting to question why. So we have two women going down two different paths, trying to find out what happened that day. Why did that attack happen? Who was the target of that attack? Who requested that attack? And these two women, like I said, are sort of operating in different circles, focusing on the same item, attack, thing. I'm so afraid of saying anything with this book, but I really enjoyed it. So did I fall for some of the red herring traps? Absolutely. Was there a moment when I thought I knew what was happening? Absolutely. Was I wrong? Yes. Was there something I was suspicious of that I was like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, I hope this is really what's happening? Of course I felt that way at one point. I really enjoyed this. So I love a book with strong female characters. I love women doing the work, getting it done. I think she just delivered on such a fantastic book. There was tension. There was so much questioning. There's definitely a question of who you can trust. I think the way the reveals and the story were woven together, the ultimate what, who, what, when, where, why, how of it all, I thought was absolutely fantastic. And I just loved it. It felt like my battery didn't like how much I was talking because it decided to turn off, and we might look a little different now. But it definitely read like something I hadn't read before, which I loved. So propulsive. I couldn't wait to get back to it. I really, really highly recommend it. I just think she's such a great writer. I really enjoyed her style. Again, I just love a book about strong women. It just was really, really good. And I had so many questions, as I feel like we were supposed to along the way. At the end, I didn't have questions. All my questions were answered at the end. And it was another book that I think definitely played fair. I have had more of, I would say, strong feelings about playing fair in books. And sometimes watching TV shows and movies where I feel like that was like a cheap out. This book is one of those books in retrospect where you can see it was all there for the taking. But I was so like sucked into the story, but I feel like as we're following Ren and Julia trying to figure out what's happening, I couldn't help but also play the part of Ren and Julia of trying to figure out what was happening. So I loved it, in case you couldn't figure that part out. Highly recommend. I have No Bad Deed, which I'm excited to read. I want to say this was her second book, and I'm excited to read more from her. So very good time, highly recommend, great thriller. And then if you were looking to balance out some thrillers, I also read This Summer Will Be Different by Carly Fortune. This is her newest book, which came out just last month, right? Right? So I'm a huge Carly Fortune fan, which I feel like you guys know. I know I talked about her a little bit in the Ashley Winstead video that I did, but this book, I feel like very much differs from Every Summer After, and I was going to say This Summer Will Be Different. This is This Summer Will Be Different, and Meet Me by the Lake, because in this book we are getting two people who meet when they are, I want to say Lucy is 24 when she first meets Felix, and then we follow them kind of over the course of like the next 5 years. So we are meeting them as adults and we are following them as adults. But this book is on Prince Edward Island chiefly. And Lucy and her best friend Bridget were supposed to go to Prince Edward Island for a vacation for a week. Bridget's family is from there. And Bridget winds up getting stuck in Toronto, which is where they're from. So Lucy flies out the day before. She's like, no worries, totally fine. I'll grab something to eat. Like, I'll go, yeah, crash at your house. It's fine. I'll see you tomorrow. So Lucy winds up going out to eat. And she is at a restaurant and she meets one of the guys who works there, who is delicious and tall and dark and handsome and funny. And the two of them leave and she goes home with him and enjoys a fantastic one-night stand with this guy. And the next morning she wakes up and they are having breakfast, and all of a sudden she starts connecting the dots that she has just slept with her best friend's younger brother. So Bridget has a couple of rules, and one of her rules is don't fall in love with my brother. So Felix and Lucy decide to keep this secret, and we go backwards and forwards in time and see them in present day and then kind of all of their meetups in between, and we get to see the evolution of their relationship. So in present day, Bridget is 1 week away from getting married and she has a bit of a panic attack and she flees Toronto and runs back to Prince Edward Island and asks Lucy to come meet her there. So Lucy is reunited with Bridget and with her brother, and everything starts to rumble back up again. So one of the things I really loved about this book, which I didn't expect just based on kind of how Every Summer After was written, is we don't just get like a few random summer flashbacks. Like, it's not just like Lucy and Bridget go to Prince Edward Island 1 week in the summer and that's when she sees Felix. So there's much more to their past relationship. I really enjoyed the unfolding and evolution of their relationship, how it built, how it grew, and I really enjoyed them together. Kind of very similar but different to how I love Daphne and Miles from Funny Story. This was just, I don't know, like the chemistry, the dynamic between them, I really enjoyed it. It's steamy. It's understandable why they have connections to each other. We get to see a lot of Bridget and Felix's family. There's a lot of complicatedness to Lucy's family. And we're also getting people at a crossroads in their life. We are getting people trying to kind of figure out who they are in some ways, making big choices, taking big swings. And I really enjoyed that. So one thing I wish we had more of, even though it's like a fully complete book, is Bridget and Lucy's friendship. So we understand that they're the best of friends and we see elements of it in the past, but in the present, Bridget is clearly struggling with something, which is why she has, you know, kind of jumped ship and gone to Prince Edward Island, but we don't quite find out what it is, which I understand the need for the dramatic tension and drawing it out. I wish, which always feels so unfair, I wish we found an opportunity to see more of their friendship sooner in the present tense, because Bridget is really sitting on her stuff as she's struggling to work through some things. So eventually we get there. I really loved like where this book ended and where we found people at the end of this book. And I feel like it was very much realistic in a lot of ways. The challenges that were faced by these characters, the time needed for these characters, choices made by these characters. And I really enjoyed Lucy and Felix together. I really, really did. I really, really did. Carly Fortune, can write a nice steamy scene. She can create a lot of really great emotion. I think she really portrays choices that people make really well as struggles. And I think a lot of pressure to be a certain thing by a certain age, to do a certain thing. And again, a lot of complex emotions that sort of how your past affects your present, and complicated grief and struggling. And you don't have to be a certain age to struggle. You don't have to be at a certain point in your life. Everybody struggles at one point or another, often more often than one time. And I think she does a really good job of portraying that struggle, both in friendships, in family, in romantic relationships, in work, in, you know, complicated work relationships, in business, just sort of like the whole stratosphere. So there's a lot of different elements in this. I feel like we get a lot of people's livelihood and work choices in this that we didn't have in Every Summer After, but I feel like you got more of in Meet Me at the Lake. But anyway, it's a lot of fun. I just really enjoyed them together. Her writing is very bingeable, kind of in a thrillery way. There is no thriller in this, I promise. But that same compulsive need to read. And I couldn't wait to get back to this book. And I just had a really, really fun time with it. So I did start the e-arc of it, then the book showed up, and then I finished it here. So there's a lot of dog earing going on. I also really enjoyed the kind of story behind the story in this one with Carly Fortune. So for any Anne of Green Gables fans out there, Prince Edward Island is where Anne was set. And there's a lot of Lucy Maud Montgomery, Anne, Gilbert, Camilla, like references. Carly, has a lot of love for Anne of Green Gables, and you can see that in here. And she pays a lot of homage to it, and I really loved that part of it. And someone who just has such love and appreciation for that story, and it's just fantastic. And is Lucy named after Lucy Maud Montgomery? My suspicion says yes. That was one for that. But it was a really good time. And Prince Edward Island, just based on the descriptions in this book, just seems like such a magical, beautiful place. I am having a case of like desperation to escape reading a book like this and just to be anywhere but here. But it was good. It was really, really good. I highly recommend it. And yeah, I will continue to follow Carly Fortune wherever she goes. So that is going to do it for this round of some recent reads. I have some more to talk about, but trying to keep these a little bit shorter and quicker. But there's more to come, so definitely stay tuned for that. And I will let you guys know what's going on, what I'm reading. I apologize for the scatterboxiness of this, for the lack of timeliness to it. It is what it is right now. And, you know, I'll see you on the other side of it. But let me know what you've been reading lately. What is on your list? What are you most excited about? I am currently reading The Bump by Sydney Carger, which I'm very much enjoying. And I am listening to Every Time I Go on Vacation Somebody Dies by Catherine Mack, which is really quite a lot of fun and has like fourth wall breaking, Finlay Donovan kind of vibes to it. They are in Italy, which is also giving me a case of the get me out of here's. I really want to go somewhere. So it's a really good time. And in The Bump, they are driving cross country. So I feel like I'm reading all of these books about people going on vacation and going places. So it's all top of mind. But reading that, I've got some thrillers to talk about. Stay tuned for the next one. I'm not going to spoil everything that I'm reading and have read there. Here, I'll spoil it there. I won't spoil the books. I'll tell you what I read. Okay, I will see you guys in that one. I need some food. All right, have a great day, everybody. I will see you in the next one. I hope everyone is doing fantastic and is a little less than I am right now. And until next time, bye everybody.